Hello, I hope that you are doing well. Thank you so much for joining me here today, where we are just going to mention a few spooky reads. So, if you are looking for the perfect read for the spooky season, but haven't gotten around to picking one out yet, we've got you covered today. So we're going to talk about a couple of middle reader books for the spooky season, a couple of young adult books for the spooky season, and a couple adult books for the spooky season. So let's start with the middle readers, and I've got two for you. First up is A Tale Dark and Grim, and this is a retelling of Hansel and Gretel, and in it they encounter witches, warlocks, hunters with deadly aim, and bakers with ovens that are just right for baking children. The City of Ghosts series by V.E. Schwab. This follows Cassidy Blake. In this one, she's in Edinburgh, Scotland, and her parents do a podcast about ghost sightings, but unknown to them, Cassidy actually sees ghosts. And her best friend Jacob is a ghost. Okay, let's move on to the YA books, and I am going to suggest Natasha Preston's book, The Haunting. This takes place in a town that loves Halloween and celebrates it every year, but 2 years ago, there was a serial killer. He has been caught, and so finally they're getting back into celebrating Halloween. But when the main character is getting her costume, something weird starts happening. And she is not allowed to see her ex-boyfriend anymore. Her parents have forbidden it because it was his father who was arrested as the serial killer. But was he really? If you've already read that one, another good one by Natasha Preston is The Cabin. I haven't read this yet, but like being in a cabin, stuck in the woods, just sounds like the coolest thing to read about, especially if you are in a cabin. And the last YA one I will mention is the Manga Classics version of Frankenstein. So if you've ever wanted to read Frankenstein, or you've read it and you want to experience again, but you don't have that much time, this is the perfect solution. So it's a manga, so it mixes images and words. And if you're worried that reading the original Frankenstein might be just a little too much, this has a lot of the text, but it doesn't take as long to read. So let's move on to the adult spooky reads. And I'm going to make a few suggestions here. I have books for some of them, and some of them I don't have books. To me, Halloween is just synonymous with reading a Stephen King book. And if you've read most of them and you're looking for another good one to read, I would suggest Fairy Tale if you haven't read it already. It gives me the feeling of like those old books. So if you've read this and you want another book to read, I would suggest Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. They remind me of one another. So that is good. If you haven't read much Stephen King and you want to go with one of his old classics, The Shining is perfect for Halloween. If you've read a lot of Stephen King, you want to get Stephen King vibes, I would suggest Joe Hill. I haven't read him yet, but I've heard a lot of good things, and I've got Strange Weather. And there we are. I hope that you enjoyed this edition of What to Read when it's almost Halloween and you're looking for a spooky read. I hope that you will join me again. We will be back very soon with what I am reading in November, and I hope to see you then. Until then, I hope that you enjoy all that you do and all that you read. And I hope your Halloween is everything you wish. Thank you.